Hi, this is Carrie with Canary Quilts, and I am working on the Fat Quarter Shop exclusive mystery quilt along called Up on the Rooftop, and they do a Christmas quilt along every year, and it takes about 4 weeks. They release the pattern each week. It's free, and you get to quilt along with either your own fabrics or they offer up a fabric kit. I've done both. I have bought the fabric kit in the past, and I've used my stash. And this year I'm obviously using my stash because their background is like, it looks black, but I think it's like a navy blue, which I like. I just didn't have navy blue. And when I knew I was gonna do this, I didn't know what it was gonna look like, so I just ordered this white background. The fabrics that I'm using are Tim Holtz's Eclectic Palette, the seasonal half-yard fabrics for Christmas. I know that's a mouthful for a fabric line, but it comes with 6 fabrics. I showed them off in the first video where I do these, and it's funny because the only Tim Holtz fabrics are up here because these are pretty big, and I pulled from my Christmas stash to do these 3 bulbs. And I was surprised to find out that I mentioned that I wasn't fond of the first block, which said ho ho ho, and it's very pixelated. A lot of you felt the same way I did. So hopefully I gave you another option. A few people said they were doing stars, which is a great option for this quilt because I bought the pattern ahead of time so I know what it looks like. And yeah, so I like my Christmas bulbs. This is the second week right here. It's kind of like a little border in between what's coming down here below it. So these are my Tim Holtz fabrics, the red and green in here. I do have a list of my fabrics down below if you want to check them out. It really does help the channel out. I have a link to the pattern if you want to get started now. If you've not heard of this or you're new to this, it is free. So you can go grab it and start working on it. These have been very beginner friendly. In the past, I think this is my 3rd or 4th one I've done. They are very beginner friendly patterns, so you shouldn't have too much of a hard time with it if you're new to quilting. Anyway, hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to see this each week and see how it turns out in the end with my fabrics as compared to what theirs would look like with the fabric kit. And let's get started working on this little block. But it's actually a big block. All right, week 2, our block is called Holly and Happiness block. It's 9.5 inches by 40.5 inches. I am doing a white background, and I'm using the Tim Holtz Eclectic Elements palette for Christmas. His seasonal palette for Christmas are the fabrics that I'm trying to use mostly through this. And then my white background is Magic Dot Cloud by Lella Boutique. It just has some white dots on it. So for this one we need 18 flying geese, and I'm going to paper piece mine. I have 1.5 inch by 3.5 inch finished paper pieces left over from a quilt that I did for flying geese, and these make 2 per paper. So these pieces, C and E, are the ones that I would need to cut for this, so I didn't cut those out. Otherwise, we have this 9 patch here, which is going to be out of this red plaid and my white dot. And then we've got some filler pieces here. I think this is B, yeah. B is going to go in between these blocks here. And then A are 2 long pieces on each side. But for the flying geese, it tells us I have 9 papers to make 18 flying geese. So for 1 paper, I need 1 4¼ by 5 inch rectangle, and that's what I have here, but I have 9 of them since I have 9 papers because it's going to be on the whole paper. And then for 1 paper, we need 2 3 inch squares. I have 9 papers, so I have 18 squares here. I'm not quite done yet because then it says those need to be cut on the diagonal. So that's what we need to do, and that is not long enough. There we go. So I need to just go through and cut all of these on the diagonal like that. And then I will have 36 triangles for my paper piecing. And I'm going to show you my paper piecing, and the rest is pretty simple in this. But that's how I'm going to put together all my flying geese, since I have those papers left over and I like to paper piece. So I'm gonna get these all cut up. There's all my squares cut on the diagonal, and I did forget to mention that my paper pieces are from It's So Emma. They have a ton of these paper pieces, all sizes for flying geese, square and a square, half square triangles, and then other star shapes and monkey wrench shapes. So I'll have a link to these down below if you want to check it out. But I have a lot of these, and I happen to have this size, so I am using them. All right, let's head over to my machine. The first thing I'm going to do, which isn't the first thing they say to do, is I'm going to take my background and my red, and we strip sew these and then cut them up so that we can make our little 9 patches here in the pattern. So I'm going to get that done first, and then we'll move on to the flying geese. All right, with those strips that I had, we got 2 strip sets. One looked like this, and that's all we had left. This is what the other one looked like. So we cut 3 out for the center and 6 for the edges out of this one. And then that's what our 9 patch looks like, and I've got 3 sets here. So we will be done with our 9 patches very shortly. All right, there's my 9 patches. Those are pretty easy to put together. I ironed them open. I think that's what the pattern says to do. I didn't really look, but that's what I did. So those are done. We are now on to the flying geese, and I'm going to go through one of these. I've got my white and my green pieces, and I've got my kitty cat. So we're going to take our paper, our It's So Emma. This is the 1.5 by 3 inch flying geese FPP, and that's 1.5 by 3 is finished. So let me show you corners, and I'm going to show you the lines. One, two, 3, and 3. So the first thing we want to do is take one of our white pieces, and on the back of this we're going to put it face up, right sides up. And what I'm going to do is right in between, I don't think you can see it. This is the bottom of this flying geese, and this is the bottom of this one. So if I put this on here, we will be cutting on these lines. So if I put this on here, and I'm going to just mark right here, I'm going to tack it down. I don't want to pin it or clip it or anything like that, so I'm going to line it up on my corners and then go over to my machine and just tack it down right there on that line. That way we will be just cutting it off in the end. So let's see. First thing I want to do is I want to turn it over, and we're going to trim number 2. And I'm actually going to do both number 2s because they don't intersect. And I'll do those at the same time. I'm using my add 1/4 to keep my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So there we go. Now I'm going to take 2 of these, my corners. I am going to line them up. Why are you flicking your tail? And the way I line them up is I just kind of eyeball this point and this point. There's plenty of fabric here because this is the actual flying geese right there. So if I just eyeball these 2 corners, I'll be good. And then I'm going to turn it over and So between 1 and 2, and I'm going to lock stitch right there. And I lock stitch down there too, just so my thread doesn't come off. And then I'm going to repeat for the other side. All right, there's my 2 pieces sewn on, and so what I want to do is iron them towards the corner. And I'm going to do both sides. And we are going to repeat for number 3. Turn it over and get your paper, fold it on the line between 1 and 3, grab your add a quarter and trim. And again, these lines don't intersect, so I'm going to turn it on the other side and trim again. Okay, grab 2 my greens and eyeball the corners and sew them on the line. And then we'll get them cut apart. All right, there's the 2 flying geeses put together on the paper. So now what we can do is trim this up. You got threads on you, little boy. I'm going to turn it over. And on this one, we are actually going to cut these out on this solid line on the inside. So, I'm gonna line it up, my ruler on the line, that solid line, and trim. Now we come to the inside and we can trim on these solid lines, and that's where we're going to cut out that part that I tacked the white down with. There we go, perfect flying geese. I love doing it like that. I swear I cannot get a perfect flying geese on my own, so Paper Piece does it for me. So I've got 9 papers. I just did 1, so I have 8 more papers to do, and I'll show you all my flying geese when I get done. Here's my 18 flying geese, which I had paper pieced, and I pulled all the papers off. So not much left to do with this big block. We have to put 3 of these together. We have to make 6 sets of those, and then what we're going to do is take the 2 sets and sandwich our 9 patch in between, and then we fill out the rest of it with our background. So that's what I'm going to get done, and I'll show you what it looks like. We should have 3 sets of these right here. All right, here's my little holly and happiness portion of the block, I guess. So I have 3 of these, and I've got 2 of these pieces, and so what we're going to do is these are connectors to our 3 pieces. So there will be 1 in the middle with these 2 on it, and then I'm going to attach 1 on each end, and then we're going to take the long pieces and put them on top and bottom of the piece that I'm going to be making right now. So pretty simple block, other than it took some time for the flying geese. All right, there's my block. 9.5 by 40.5 inches. You saw it at the beginning. It's the same width as the first one. And it was really easy to put together. Not too hard. And I showed you how to use the It's So Emma 1.5 inch by 3 inch flying geese. That's the finished size. If you've never used these before. So I've got links to all this down below, to the free pattern at Fat Quarter Shop, to the flying geese that I used, and everything else. If you want to check it out, it helps the channel out. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!